Welcome to the Good News Bay podcast, where we are making Bay County brighter, one conversation at a time. Today, we are ultra blessed to have with us Josh Street.
Ultra.
Yeah, I don't know if I've used that word on the podcast before. It means a lot. We're very thankful. I've been looking forward to getting to interview you and talk to you a little bit about Panama City and how I think you're trying to make Panama City the premier city in the Panhandle. I think that's the phrase that we go with. And by way of introduction, you are operating in the capacity as city commissioner for Ward 4, which is the St. Andrews area, plus a little acreage in addition to that, right? Just a little bit outside of that. But you work obviously with all the other commissioners in the county to make the progress. Prior to being a city commissioner, you started your own business.
I did. So I ran a manufacturing company, started with my brother for 15 years. And so
Here in Bay County.
And we sold it right before actually COVID hit. And so that's where
Absolutely. So we got the business background that is there. And I'm going to run through this other part, but and then we'll elaborate later. But you are on staff at North Star.
I am.
Have been for a number of years in the role of finance and operations officer. Walked with them through together you have walked through the storm. And then you ran for office, for city commission. And won, and have now been serving. Has it been more than a year now?
It's been a little over a year.
Okay.
So I'm still a newly elected official, and as far as
there you go. What you are not is you're not new to St. Andrews.
No.
Born and raised in St. Andrews.
Actually, was born and raised in St. Andrews. Grew up off of near Oakland Terrace Park. Went to Jinx. Went to Bay High. So a lot of my life was spent in exactly St. Andrews. The only reason why I didn't go to Oakland Terrace Elementary is because my mom was a teacher, and so she taught at Southport Elementary, so that's where I ended up.
So you made a little bit of a drive.
So I had to drive.
That's good. You were married. Your wife is Johanna.
Yep.
You have 3 children.
Yep.
What ages are Judah, Eleanor, and Joel?
Judah's 14, Eleanor's 12, and Joel is 3. So we've got the full gamut right now.
That's good. Active life.
It is. We got a basketball player, a volleyball player, and just a seasoned boss at 3 years old.
Cool.
Runs everything.
Well, I want to compliment you on the front end if I can. I like to do this. I try to research a little bit. One of your friends, now one of your friends, also somebody goes to the church, but Brad Stevens, Sun Jammers Water Sports over there in St. Andrews, and he is so thankful for you being willing to run for office.
For him.
He said a couple things. I've interviewed him. We go back and look at his podcast. But one of the things that he said about you is that you handle conflict very well. He felt like the experience that you gained by leading in the role that you did with the finance and operations at North Star prepared you for dealing with FEMA, dealing with hurricane recovery, dealing with insurance. And so literally, he's very confident that you were prepared for. The circumstances, maybe God Himself prepared you to be.
Firmly believe it was God.
Absolutely.
So that's who prepares us for whatever He's got for us.
Well, and I want to ask you in just a minute. I want to ask a little bit about how you got into the political side of it. But before I do, I want to just go ahead and dive right into some of these updates because we have. Our previous podcast was Jennifer Vigil. She gave us a bunch of happy stuff, good things that are happening in the community. There's lots of the nuts and bolts side that I think you can speak to. And in addition to that, our very first podcast was Mark McQueen. And at that time, we were just wanting to see that there was some progress since the hurricane. And there was a lot of planning that had been done, a lot of things that were in process. Some of those have been completed. Some of those are partial. Some of those you're going to give us updates on today. And so let's just go ahead and dig in and ask a little bit about the infrastructure side.
Okay.
And I know that specifically, you and I have talked a lot about a number of different issues that relate to 15th Street and the corridor there at Highway 98. Talk to us a little bit about that corridor.
So one that everyone I think is aware of in our community is the state of repair that's been our sewer and water system. And so we've got a lot of work that's happening in that. St. Andrews has got 2 lift stations under construction. We got a lot of engineering. So in the next 2 to 3 years, there's going to be trucks deployed on a lot of streets.
Well, anybody that may not, and sometimes if they don't go to St. Andrews, they may not know. Like even when we interviewed Mark McQueen, on the way out of here, he was getting a phone call from the utilities because there was a big water line bust.
Yep.
And many of those pipes are those old clay pipes from the Babylonian Empire.
Terracotta.
And so,
and it's interesting now that we're at the stage in the recovery where we've actually been able to camera the systems and see those things. I mean, you'll see stuff like water just pouring in a sewer pipe from just groundwater continuously. And so, there's a lot of challenges that we've got. We're making progress. St. Andrews.
That's what we're wanting to hear.
Yeah, St. Andrews has got about $70 million worth of, like, this is not like waiting to be funded, or that's like, I mean, it's actual funding. Most of that is through grants that have been achieved.
Either state or federal?
Both. And we are very thankful for those partners that, I mean, we could not afford to fix the things that are broken just on local taxpayers.
Those grants are very specific in how they can be used.
They are.
And they are for the infrastructure that we're describing.
They are. So they're completely dedicated: sewer, water, street repavings, and stormwater improvements. That's the only thing they can be spent on.
Is it fair to say all of that is kind of in an ongoing process, like it's happening?
It is. And we're still advocating for more. I mean, just last week we had DO in, and I was thankful to be able to help represent the city with that group that came in, and walking them around and letting them see, like, hey, we've got this water line that's broken over here. This is one of 10 a day. 10 a day in the city of Panama City, a water line breaks.
Really?
That's what we're on. But we're down from a year ago of 12. And so we're moving. We're moving.
Better than yesterday.
Yeah, but when you think about that in the totality of, you've got a crew that is understaffed because everyone's looking for employees. They've got 10 breaks a day. They have to make choices on which ones get fixed, and some of them sometimes can be bigger than others. But that is progress, and we have to celebrate. When you've got a big mountain to climb, you got to celebrate every 1,000 feet. And so for us, seeing it move from 12 to 10, that's a big deal. And when I see that move from 10 to 8 to 6 to 5 to 0, that's something for us to celebrate as a community. And we're going to get there. So
before we jump into the corridor, and I've hesitated to actually bring this up because I know there's here in Lynn Haven, there's been some flooding. There's been flooding throughout the community. St. Andrews is a place, as you've described it, that has had some historical flooding issues.
Yes,
you witnessed it because you grew up there.
Yeah, I have. The house I grew up in, we didn't really have any issues there. But when my wife and we had our daughter, we moved to a larger house that was north of 98. And we happened, unbeknownst to us, we moved right into a flooded neighborhood. And that had a lot to do with why I wanted to get into public office. We've been going through stuff as a church and, personally in my own life of really challenging to try to help in whatever ways you can inside the community. And we had gotten to the point financially that we could move from where we were. And I looked at my wife and I just said, like, I felt like something prompted me one day and said, like, I feel like we're abandoning our neighbors. A lot of them, including very good friends, we'd help them take stuff out of their house for like third and fourth time of flooding. And I said, like, I just believe that there's a way for us to help in a greater way. Little did I know that I get prompted to go and run for office and knock on doors and learn more than it wasn't just my street that had problems. Right. There was a lot of other ones. There was a lot of other ones too. And so, so that's been a passion of mine since being in office. And, we just had 21 homes that we finally were able to get contracts on and purchasing, but we've still got another 28 to go. And, I'm a very realistic person by nature. But I also have to remind myself, you've got to celebrate when you can do for one what you wish you could do for everybody. Right. That is a huge amount of progress, and you have to treat every situation in that way. You told me a story a few moments ago, and I think it's important because, like, we know that not everybody's where we want them to be yet. We know that there's not just an easy solution. Yeah. We're working at it. Tell us one story of what is turning into a success. So what I did when I first came into office, and I learned that St. Andrews has the largest amount of repetitive, like we call them, they're called repetitive loss areas. Okay. That's the technical government name for them. But what it is people that flood over and over again, and some multiple times a year. It's 85 homes and businesses. I know almost every single one of those names. I've met with almost every single one of them, and I keep them on a list. And when we got into the point of purchasing these homes, there's about 40, 45 homes in that area that do flood repetitively. And there's one lady in particular, she has an autistic son, single mom, first-time home buyer, had bought the house a year ago. Before it was not disclosed that it flooded, and she's flooded 3 times in the last year. Devastating. First time she didn't have flood insurance. The second time she has. And kind of the way that I try to lead and try to work with others is, all of our problems are all of ours to solve together. And so right now we're working to get that one single household, that single mom, over to the county to hopefully we're able to see her home purchased and she can move on into a different home that won't flood, and her family can be better off. Every situation's unique and every situation's different, but from a ministry background, there's just something that tugs at you, and it feels like you got to do whatever you can. And it just, a lot of days it feels like it's not enough, but you keep pressing forward. And when you can see that change that happens, like knowing on Sunday 2 weeks ago, that neighborhood that 21 homes bought in, most of them flooded 2 weeks ago. And then that next Monday, we're able to offer purchase contracts. That took a long time to get there.
That's hope.
But that's hope. And it's hope that spills over to the other adjacent property owners that aren't in the first tranche, that we're going to keep fighting and keep pushing until we do find solutions.
Well, and I think the reason we would delve into something like that is it's good for our viewers and listeners to hear that while it's not perfect now, there is good news on the way. And we can do that without ignoring the reality that there's some struggles.
Yeah, there are.
Your ability to relate to that, though, by having, the people, at least now you do, right?
Yeah.
And you've been neighbors with so many of them. Yeah. You have a personal vested interest that I don't know that I really knew before we set up the interview in the St. Andrews area.
Yeah, my heart is definitely affected by it. And, because you see that loss and despair that goes on someone's home. And for me, and a lot of us that lived here during the storm, we experienced it ourselves. When we had to go home and we had to throw away our kids' toys because they got ruined because our house got destroyed. I mean, like that's a different level of understanding.
You said you were displaced for 6 months. And
6
how many
months,
different places did you
We
live?
went to 7 different homes.
There you go.
So
everybody's got a story.
Everyone
and
does.
This was real.
And what I have to remind myself, and I do remind the people that we're walking through this journey with now, is, our struggles are the things that make us stronger.
Yep.
And it helps us to be able to help others. So
awesome. As we aim ahead, one of the ideas that it really, we talked about it. I talked about it some off air with Jennifer Vigil and some others. I was just trying to research it.
Yeah.
But I think it's really neat that there are leaders in the community that are looking far enough forward that they're looking at, say, the growth with the colleges. Both of them are growing. We got the new dorm set up over there for Florida State, the new research hospital. So we know it's coming. So we know that there's more of that that's going to happen. That main corridor coming in on 98 and 15 has been kind of a blight. I'm just going to
little bit of a blight.
And I'm going to go ahead and just jump out there. There's a lot of us that are kind of excited to see one more strip club in Bay County go in the toy box. Yeah. And so it's been demolished. It's gone.
It is.
I don't know if I should take joy in it or not. I don't think any funeral was had in service, but there's
we did have a service.
Did you?
We did.
Well, I know there's going to be a 3-story multi-use building.
Yep, there is.
That will look nice going back in its place. But that area, when we talk about a corridor coming off the bridge and into that, we want all that and Oakland Terrace to be more walkable. I mean, talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I can remember, and probably a lot of people that grew up here can remember, 15th Street didn't always look like that. I can remember going to Sunday dinner or Sunday lunch over there at some of the restaurants that used to be over there. There used to be a Showbiz Pizza over there, for goodness sake.
Yep.
And so now it's a nightclub, by the way.
I went to Showbiz.
So it just over time, and what happened with 23rd Street as it grew and expanded and good things happened there, it kind of detracted from some of the momentum that happened on 15th Street. And so then you got some strip clubs that moved in and so on and so forth. And, if we're going to change, it really comes down to what do we accept as a community? And I think that's the thing that woke up after Hurricane Michael in a lot of us and said, okay, if we're going back like, let's not go back the way that it was before. Let's go back to the way that we want it to be.
Let's be better.
And for me, that's a gateway corridor. I envision a day that we're going to see, a lot of really positive things in there. Papa Joe's isn't one of those positive stories. They're expanding with more opportunities for people to come and have small businesses and get a pontoon boat, jet skis, whatever you want to.
So you said Papa Joe's. A lot of people hear that. They know exactly what I'm talking about. They sat out there and watched the sunset, listen to music, the different venues
Beautiful
they have.
area.
They have food trucks. But we also said there's expansion. That's one of the things that I asked. There's expansion. So you've talked to their leadership. They're actually putting in more boat slips and stuff.
Yeah, they've got a marina that they've been through the permitting process on, and so they should be having more boat slips that are there here pretty soon. They're going to have some lifts so they can handle more pontoon boats. They bought a giant, nice like cruiser boat that's over there too, and and I mean, when you think about that area, it's proximity to water, it's proximity to the colleges, it's proximity to, even the historic St. Andrews area. There's no reason why it can't be different. I mean, there's really not. You got
to think that there's different pieces being put together that will eventually connect in some way.
Well,
some of them green spaces. I mean, all that stuff is exciting.
Yeah, right now we're trying to work through a grant process. I was thankful that all of us that are elected officials, we get to sit on a board called the TPO. It's our Transportation Planning Organization.
Okay.
So they were supportive of us doing a complete streets project on Highway 98, which would involve some green space, expanding some of the sidewalks to be more walkable, doing some pedestrian improvements. And, those type changes have a ripple effect that happen, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. And when we all wake up one day and my kids are graduating high school and they're looking for places where they're going to live, I want them to live in Panama City. I want them to feel like this is a place where they can get a good paying job, they can get a good education, and they can raise their family, because it's been a great place for us to raise our family in. And I want it to be that same way for them.
That's great. Talk to me a little bit about Oakland Terrace Park. I know that, like, as our church, we have a church league softball. And as long as I've been around Bay County, there's always been church league softball. There's non-church league softball, and sometimes church league softball feels like non-church league softball. But it all happens.
Depends on who's winning.
Yeah, right. They're human. There's church people are humans too, right? But so Oakland Terrace has always been a gathering point in a variety of ways. Mm-hmm. But there's some upgrades coming. I'm also going to go ahead and interject the idea of pickleball.
Oh yeah.
In some of the discussion, there's like some pickleball courts. I'm like, what's pickleball? And I started talking to some of my senior adults, and they're like, we love pickleball, and blah, blah, blah. And then I started talking to some of these college students that are going off to college, and they're playing pickleball.
Yeah.
So it's the fastest growing sport in America since the pandemic. So if you hadn't looked it up, you need to look it up. Tell me about Oakland Terrace. What's coming?
So everything is always changing. You talk about conflict resolution too.
Yes.
Because there's always a win and a loss, and sometimes. And so what we're doing right now is we're going to convert. It's 3 of the tennis courts that are over at Oakland Terrace, which will leave 4 tennis, and it'll have 8 pickleball courts. They're going to be at Oakland Terrace Park because it is the fastest growing sport.
Yeah.
We had a community meeting just the other day. We had 60 people show up to this community from the tennis side and the pickleball side. So I mean, it's a growing sport. It's those groups are getting along great, and excited to see it come to Panama City, and so excited to see it be at Oakland Terrace Park. It's just another thing to do.
I know that all construction costs more and takes longer than what's slated.
Yeah.
But is there any kind of ETA on that project?
So we're at about 95% on the design plans. So we should get that back as a commission here in the next month or two, and then we'll go out to bid on construction for hopefully just the court section in the next 6 months. So
is there anything else related to that corridor and the walkability of that area around the colleges down towards St. Andrews that I've missed?
No, I mean, obviously landscaping, we're trying to change a little bit of the road design to be more pedestrian friendly. I'm thankful for the private investment. Take the toy box. I got to be the person that swung the first sledgehammer on that thing. So, and let me tell you something. When that happened, it was like, it just went through the wall. I mean, I didn't have to work very hard at that.
So pretty strong.
So it was on its last leg in the first place. So no pun intended. So that was private investment that did that, and we need more people to invest in corridors like that. So Quorums, you guys saw, coming down on 23rd Street. They're moving to 15th Street.
Yes.
So they're going to be building right there at the corner of right there beside Grocery Outlet that's getting rebuilt too. That's right there. So we've got some good investors that are coming to try and help change that corridor. So I'm positive on the future, and we could not do it with government. Can only do so much. The private sector and us as consumers have got to make an intentional choice to invest our money there to really see it make a change. So
let me ask you, but we're calling the second section kind of the lightning round of projects.
Okay,
right?
go ahead, fire away.
Hotel Indigo.
Hotel Indigo, close. Looks like March, February of next year is when they'll be open for business. So they're getting close. And if you haven't eaten at the restaurant, Harrison's has been doing well.
I've heard great things. I haven't been yet, but I keep hearing.
I have. It's got a beautiful view. Obviously, our waterfront is second to none. So
the farmers market moved.
Farmers Market in St. Andrews moved down to Oaks by the Bay, so they got a nice little shaded area that they're in. Panama City Farmers Market that's downtown, it's doing great too. So we got 2 farmers markets that are doing well, and so thankful for everybody that's involved.
That's awesome. What about Martin Theater? What's going on with it?
So I will say this: out of all the projects that I've seen come forward from the city, the Martin Theater is second to none. I mean, it is going to be a remarkable project that will stand out across the Southeast, if not the country.
You said those plans are incredible looking.
Oh, they're amazing.
Are those something we can put a link to on our?
I'll get you. I can show you the last iteration of those designs. It's a postmodern, like Art Deco. We've got expansions into rooftop deck. As well as some other expansions for meeting spaces and things like that. So it's not going to be the same Martin Theater it was before. It's going to be better. So,
that's what I keep hearing. That's great news.
It's a beautiful project.
Baker Court Infrastructure Project.
So that's one of the ones that's been Baker Court. For those that don't know, it's right one street up from Beach Drive. It's the oldest area of St. Andrews. As a matter of fact, when I was knocking on doors, I found 6 homeowners that did not have internet access in the middle of the city. And so they do today. Thankfully.
Progress. See, better than yesterday.
Progress. So it's an old part of town. It's the next one that's up on a complete streetscaping project and putting in sidewalks and redoing the roads and changing the sewer lines. So
a surprise when we were doing the pre-interview was movie theaters. Tell me about our new movie theater.
Yeah, like a lot of people, I think it's just taken so long that people just don't notice it anymore. We forgot about it. So right next to Sam's, the old Regal, the old Regency is going to a Regal cinema. It's a flagship cinema, so it's a 4D experience, brand new IMAX screen. So those of us that always drive over to the Grand, we're going to have a nice new theater right in the middle of town that we're going to be able to enjoy, and it's going to be super nice. And so they're getting close. Hopefully by December, if not, it'll be first quarter of next year reopening. So
that's awesome.
It is. That is exciting to see stuff.
I know we're in the lighter. I meant to ask you more about St. Andrews Marina. It's in progress, right?
It is, and so I know I had a lot of people ask me like, "Why'd you take away the swings?" We didn't take away the swings, so it's part of the rebuilding. No, we are not taking away the swings. So as they're going through their
first the tennis courts and then
man. So and we're actually got 3 more coming over by Uncle Ernie's right now that should be open here in the next 2 weeks.
Swings.
Okay. So more swings are coming back. Today they're doing some demo on the old ice house that was out there. And so we're hoping to have groundbreaking on the actual bulkheads by the end of the year. And, construction of that magnitude takes time. So we're still on a 2-year project, but it's on schedule, it's on budget, and we're moving forward. And so I will be celebrating the day that is back in our community, because it's a very centerpiece to St. Andrews. So.
Well, I'm convinced that we're going to continue more and more just year by year, and probably more sooner than we've seen before. Just the progress is going to continue to kind of snowball, which is good. It is. I want to change gears, and I want to talk. I want you to take your commissioner hat off for a second, and let's talk church.
Okay.
I don't get an opportunity to do that very often. I'm excited for you guys. I know Marty Martin's a pastor over there where y'all are at. It's been a long journey back. You still have 3 campuses, but you're meeting on a single campus now.
Yes, we are.
That's been completely redone.
Yes, it has.
I'm going to be quiet and let you just talk about what because y'all just did a new grand opening.
We did. And so, part of our goal in going back in as a facility, that was one of my projects to manage. And and it's been a FEMA project as well. So we're one of the first churches in the country to walk through that process, which I got to tell you, it's not for the faint of heart.
No.
But we just got back in, and our goal was to try to make it a center that was used more during the week, not just on Sundays. And so we got a coffee shop that's going there, the Drip. They've been doing well, open Wednesday through Sunday, and indoor playground, and just excited to see everybody back together, because it was tough it was probably tougher during the pandemic than what it was even through Hurricane Michael, because there were points in times where we legitimately couldn't meet together. So
it's been so hard from a church, because that's your for so many families, that's their lifeline. That is their family.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited that y'all are back in it. I know we can put up a
back
link too, if anybody's interested in knowing where you're at, what service times
absolutely.
are, or even if they want to know about coffee.
Yeah.
I've heard great things about coffee. I know some Christians, or maybe not Christians, but people that want to have, they are too, but they want to have meetings and get together during the day. You can go grab a cup of coffee at the Drip.
Yep.
I asked your pastor about you. I hope it's all right.
My
reached
goodness.
out. Yeah. And I said, tell me, I'm meeting with Josh. Tell me about Josh. And I wanted publicly to, everybody wants to hear nice things from their boss, right? So he says, I cannot say enough good about Josh. He has overseen the entire rebuild project, has done an excellent job. He's gone above and beyond in every way. And we're so blessed to have him leading our team at North Star. So I gave him a chance to gaff you, and he was not about to. He thinks a lot of you and loves that y'all are a part of the team. And in that light, as you were telling me earlier, Marty Pastor Marty encouraged you as a team during a pandemic to kind of get outside of your boundaries or outside of your normal space and get out into the community. Was that part of the process?
That was a part of the process for me, is, really talking about, we had some people that were going out, they were, playing out at restaurants or doing things like just trying to get involved in the community. Some were doing like leadership classes and things like that. And, God hadn't brought anything to me yet. And then it was through the process I was talking to you about, looking what was going on in my neighborhood. How do we, we're such a pivotal time as a community, making decisions about what we're going to be when we grow up. Or it's more not when we're growing up, it's when we wake up and reinvigorated after the storm. It was that. And, and I remember the meeting, I walked in and I said, guys, like, I feel like God wants me to do this. And, you can see the shock on the face, but they were very supportive through the process and have been as well. We don't get involved in politics as a church. And
well, you said you've never been in any
in
school.
No, man, I think I ran for student council in the 3rd grade. And so but that was it. So never had that kind of desire and pull. But now on the other side of it, it is very similar to ministry. It's very similar to that pastoral role.
An observation that I've made in recent years is that we're living in a world where everybody is cynical. They're cynical about motives and how dollars are being spent and all these things. And just kind of speaking personally as a citizen of Bay County, but also as a pastor, it's been encouraging to me to have people in offices like you that I truly respect. You don't have to be on staff at a church to be a person of integrity, but you'd hope and pray. And I think we have found that many of the people that have chosen to take a role in office, and I see a guy like Mark McQueen is one of those who has a similar he's not, nobody's perfect, right? You're not perfect.
No,
but I love the fact that it's bringing back a sense of believability. You and I were talking about, like, when you deal with finances within the church, people are voluntarily giving you. You don't tax
they have
them.
a choice,
right? And so your whole job is to show where use it well and show where the dollars went.
You have to, and and that's a good point. And as we were talking, it's in government that we have this thing called taxation that we can make somebody have to pay, but in church world we have to get people to want to do those things. And so for us, it has to be transparent, because if someone isn't competent, then they just say no. They don't.
Well, and I have to be careful, because I do not want to risk going into the weeds with this. But the fact is, when I look at Bay County, and I'm gonna have you mention a couple of things you look forward to and see that bring hope. But there's reasons in past experience that would cause people to be cynical about public office, both nationally and even locally, right? I mean, because of some of the things our community's gone through. But the fact is, things are getting better. They're getting better, I think, in how offices are running, like within the city offices. You, as municipalities, are working with other municipalities. And I think we're not only seeing that, but we're seeing greater accountability with where the dollars themselves are going.
Yeah, and I think there's only more to come, because for us to get where we have so many things going on as a community, if we don't rely on each other, we're not going to accomplish them. We'll crash and burn. Like we need each other, and we need to help each other to get through to the next stage of growth that's in our community. And I do take that. I mean, and there's a line. So there's this line that I talk to people that ask me about, elected office government. There's an illegal line, and then there's an ethical line.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of people that won't do what's illegal, but there's not as many people that won't do what's unethical. And that's the integrity line that we have to constantly be bringing up that standard.
Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's right.
No. And, I pray with my kids every day, actually. I said, God, help us to do the right thing, even when it hurts. And sometimes making the right decision isn't the feel-good decision, and that's a principle that we understand as believers, that I hope gathers respect on even those that have yet to believe.
Absolutely.
So,
well, and I actually asked you for permission, really, because I very seldom bring the faith conversation directly into a show like this, but one of the things that I think is important. And you and I share this belief relative to like the word.
Mm-hmm.
And as a church family, Jeremiah 29:7 is right before a verse that a lot of people that are believers have heard of, in verse 13 and 14. It literally says, "You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord." And it's literally verse 11 talks about knowing the plans. Lord, I know the plans that I have for you, plans for welfare, not for calamity. But very seldom do we read verse 7. Which literally Jeremiah is saying to them, "Seek the welfare of the city where I've sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare." And so I'm sitting across from a friend who is a friend and a fellow believer in Christ, knowing that we're talking to people who may not be believers, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because the role in which you're sitting, me as a pastor, you in this case as a commissioner, our God-given responsibility is to pray for you that God would give you wisdom, because as you have wisdom and act in the role that God has put you in as an authority, believer or not, right? Our welfare as a community, even the believers, is bound up in that. So we're called to pray for you, and I want you to know, I want to pray for you, but I want to pray for other leaders as well. And I think it's important to make that note. I really listen. I don't know if that's the right way to end a Good News Bay podcast or not. I will ask you this question, because hope is one of the things that I think is so important as a theme.
Yeah.
What are one or two things that make you so hopeful as you look to the future? You may have already mentioned them, but I know you're raising your family here. You're working on a lot of things. Couple of things, maybe about Panama City, maybe about the community as a whole, that give you hope.
I think number one that gives me hope is the realization that there's more people that want to work together than separately. So
that's great.
That's a big one. The second thing is we are seeing resources come into our community that will drastically change the opportunity that my kids have, that the next generation has. And whereas historically, a lot of people have left to move away, the goal is, and the hope is, that they're going to be able to live and raise their family here. So I'll get to see my grandkids.
Yeah, that's a good goal.
So that's what makes me hopeful, is just watching what's taking place in our community. Even though there's a lot of growth, there's a lot of things to manage, there's a lot of opportunities that are coming to us as a community that we've never had before. And it's that hope that is going to create a lot of opportunity for our kids and future generations. And I think that's a good thing. That's a really good thing.
I think it'd be a really hard case to make to say that what you just described is not in process. Like we see it coming and it's happening. It would lead me to believe that the best is yet to come. I believe it. I know it's true. Listen, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
I hope that we have brightened the day of those of you that have listened and have watched, and we can't wait to share with you some more good news one day real soon. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us for the Good News Bay podcast, where we are making Bay County brighter one conversation at a time. Please help us share this good news and change the conversation by liking, sharing, and subscribing to the podcast.